You're listening to the Online Business Blueprint, brought to you by PlatformLaunchers.com. I'm John Stange, and it is great to have you with us. As always, we always look forward to this time together because we get to talk about building and growing and monetizing your online platform. We talk about taking your passion, turning it into a platform so that you can earn a paycheck. Your online business is something that we want to see succeed. And one of the things that I think is a really important subject to talk about that we're going to be talking about this week is this idea of authenticity, specifically authenticity versus perfectionism when building an online brand. Many people think they have to be perfect. I'm going to contend that authenticity is where it's at. By the way, even as we prepare to get into this, if you want to see some authentic content that will genuinely help you build your online business, head over to platformlaunchers.com. We got a ton of stuff over there for you. We hope you'll make use of it. But let's talk about authenticity for a few moments here together this week. So in today's digital landscape, it's very much a digital landscape at this point. Building an online brand, which is what we're doing if we're in the online business space, it's not just about having a beautiful logo. It's not just about having a catchy tagline. I see many people that tend to over focus on those things. Those things are fine, but that's not all that business is all about. I think visual appeal is useful. I think clever messaging is useful. I think those things can attract attention. But the true foundation of a successful online brand, which I want you to experience, which I want you to have, it lies in authenticity. Authenticity, by the way, it's more than a buzzword. It's the cornerstone of trust. It's the cornerstone of loyalty. It's the cornerstone of meaningful engagement with your audience because we live in an era where customers are more informed, they are more discerning than ever. So I would contend that authenticity, it's no longer optional. It's essential. And I'll give you a good example of this. I think I brought this example up in discussing some things with our members recently. Um, Recently, I heard a story that I'm guessing if you're either reading my content or listening or watching from the UK, you might already identify with this. But I learned that the standard legacy media outlets in the UK, in particular, have really been struggling lately because they're struggling to connect with the audience that once trusted them. Over the past few years, I think all of us have observed that in the midst of all the turmoil taking place, there are people that are looking for trusted news outlets, and many citizens apparently in the UK have started to feel like they couldn't trust their news anymore. They couldn't trust their the news anchors, the TV stations, the print media, things like that. They started to feel like there was an agenda behind much of the media that was reporting things that were taking place. And so as a result, trust for the media, at least standard media or legacy media in the UK, has been going down and down and down. And what's happened is that many people are now starting to rely on what we would say are unpolished citizen journalists to get their news. That's become a very common trend, not just in the UK, but the things that I've been reading about have been talking about how, particularly in the UK, this has been a trend that's been catching on. These um, uh, citizen journalists, right? These unpolished citizen journalists are starting to be viewed as more trustworthy, as more authentic, and they don't fit the mold of the typical broadcaster, but people are starting to notice this, and it's really helping them build online brands. So just take notice of that as a case study as you're trying to build your online business or your online platform. But let's talk about just this idea of understanding authenticity and online branding because it matters. And I'm going to give us a few steps here in a few minutes on how to be authentic in the midst of this digital landscape that we're trying to create. But authenticity, like if you're thinking about authenticity at its core, when you're trying to debate, like, what is this? Authenticity means staying true to who you are. It means staying true to what you stand for. It means staying true to the values that define your brand. It involves honest communication and genuine interaction with your audience. Authenticity is not about perfection. It's actually about being real and being relatable. When a brand is genuinely authentic, it resonates with people, and it does so on a deeper level. It fosters a sense of trust, it fosters a sense of loyalty, and no marketing gimmick is ever going to be able to replicate that. Authenticity is all about being real and relatable, meaning all you have to do, truthfully, as you're trying to build your online brand, is be you. You don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to put on a show. You don't have to be something that you're not. Just be you. Present the valuable information that you present, the things that you know about, the things that you desire to help people with, and be real and relatable as you do so. Authenticity, when you think about like how we're supposed to practice this, it it involves consistency in our messaging. It involves transparency in our actions. It involves a commitment to actually deliver on our promises. So whether you are an individual influencer in your space or whether you represent a small business or even if you represent a large corporation, I think it's the same no matter what size the group you happen to serve with happens to be. Authenticity requires aligning your words with your actions so that you ensure that your brand's identity has an accurate reflection of its core mission and its core values. Now, let's talk for a second about why authenticity matters. And I want to give you an example of something that I literally noticed just today, something that came to my attention today. And so I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. But let's just talk about why authenticity matters. First of all, when you're talking about authenticity, you're talking about it mattering because it builds trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. And the same holds true for the relationship with a brand and its audience. So in this world, and I know we can think of lots of examples of this. This is a world where deception and false advertising are quite prevalent. And over time, many of us have learned to become skeptical of the claims that different businesses make or different personalities make or anything like that. But when a brand is authentic, it earns the trust of its audience. And that makes the audience more likely to engage with it, makes the audience more likely to support it or even advocate for its brand. We were talking about brand advocacy a couple episodes ago, and that's certainly an important thing, and it's very much tied to authenticity. So, how do we do this? Well, I think a lot of times when I see people trying to be genuinely authentic with what they're doing online, with the content they're creating or the people that they're trying to serve, I see people doing things like this. They share behind the scenes stories. They are willing to admit mistakes. Many people in this world are not willing to admit mistakes, but if you're being authentic, you admit your mistakes. You openly address your challenges. You humanize your brand. You demonstrate authenticity by doing all of those things together. And when people feel that a brand is being transparent and honest, I think they are more inclined to support it. I think authenticity matters for a few other reasons as well. I think it also fosters loyalty. Authenticity legitimately breeds loyalty. So you have when potential clients believe in your brand's mission and believe in your brand's values, they are much more likely to remain loyal customers. And loyal customers are not only repeat buyers, but they also become brand ambassadors. They spread positive word of mouth. They help attract new customers. I was at a conference a couple of years ago. It was talking about the most effective marketing that any of us can do, and word of mouth marketing was more effective than many paid strategies. So if you're authentic and you foster loyalty, that's going to help you when it comes to people spreading positive word of mouth about the business that you're trying to build or lead or develop and grow. I think authenticity could also be useful because it'll help you differentiate your brand. I think we could admit that this is a crowded marketplace. There's a lot of people that are vying for attention, especially on social media. And I think some people wonder, all right, how can I actually make my brand stand out? Well, if you're authentic, that provides a unique, I would even say a competitive advantage by showcasing what makes your brand different. Instead of trying to mimic your competitors, be an authentic brand that embraces its individual identity and connects with your audience in a genuine way. Don't try to be somebody else. You have no competition. Just be you. Don't try and mimic your competitors. Just be you. That's what people want to see. I feel like your authenticity is going to become like a beacon for like-minded individuals who share your values to come and find you. And what ends up happening is when they find you and they notice that you're someone that they find easily relatable, that's going to create a sense of community. Even if they don't know you directly, may even create a sense of belonging that'll help strengthen the bond between you and your brand and the audience that you're trying to serve. So I think that's a big part of why authenticity matters, but it also encourages engagement. Authentic brands have a habit of inspiring deeper engagement because people feel emotionally connected to what you're doing. And you become a trusted voice that people are willing to engage with because they're not afraid of you. They're not afraid to engage with what you're doing because you've developed trust. You are honest. You are showing them things about yourself that humanize you and humanize your brand. And as a result, people find that just they're much more willing to engage with that than they would be if you had that standoffish posture where you were trying to present yourself as perfect. Authenticity really does encourage meaningful interactions. So people often ask me, and even with our members club, we were having a little bit of a discussion right before the podcast went live about building authenticity. Actually, in our early bird time tonight, we were talking about this. How to actually build authenticity with your online brand. What differentiates it? What does it look like? And I said, when we get to the podcast tonight, I'm going to share a few things that really are ways that will help you build authenticity. And then in a moment, I'm going to tell you a little story about something that happened today, something I was really encouraged by. But first of all, when you're trying to build authenticity, like if you're new at doing this and you're wondering how it's done, just a couple thoughts, and none of these are complicated. First of all, think about your brand and then just define your brand identity. So I think authenticity starts with a little bit of self-awareness. So all you need to do as you're thinking about your brand, just look at your brand's mission and values and purpose. What are the things that you stand for, or what problems are you aiming to solve? I always encourage people to kind of look at that, like, what problems are you aiming to solve? And your brand's identity should serve as a guiding compass for all your decisions and your actions when it comes to these things. So if you're going to be an authentic voice, understand your brand's identity, the purpose of what you're trying to do, the problems that you're trying to solve. Just have a real clear handle on that, because that's going to contribute to your ability to be authentic. Secondly, if you're trying to build authenticity in your online brand, be transparent. Transparency is the key to building trust. That means being honest about yourself, honest about your products, honest about your services, honest about your intentions, honest about the things that you are able to do and help with, and likewise honest about the things that you're just not qualified to do. Don't try and pretend to be something that you're not. If you make a mistake, own up to it and take steps to make it right. I have to tell you, when I observe leaders who are willing to admit that they've made mistakes, I don't trust them less. I trust them more. Someone that's willing to admit a mistake earns my trust. It's not the opposite. I don't expect perfection of any human being that I have ever met. We're all a work in progress, and transparency shows that you value honesty. And I trust honest leaders. I don't like insecure leaders. I don't think insecurity makes for good leadership. In fact, I think insecure leaders are the most dangerous leaders. And an insecure leader would never admit a mistake. They just wouldn't unless they had to. So being transparent, being willing to admit mistakes, being able to talk about what you do and what you don't do, admitting your own limitations, it shows that you value your audience's trust. And I think in my case, when I see people do that, it helps them earn my trust. I trust people who are willing to be transparent like that. A third thing that I think helps build authenticity is this: share your story. Every one of us has a story. I have a story on how I got involved in creating online content and why I feel motivated to help others succeed by building an online platform or an online business. I talk about my story from time to time. I think every brand has its own unique story that sets it apart. So share the journey that helped you create your brand, the things that led to you doing what you're doing. Share about the challenges that you've had to overcome and the lessons that you've learned along the way. Share your story. People like stories. And you have a unique story. Every one of us represented here, we all have a unique story, something that motivates you to do what you do. And then a fourth thing I'll say is this: engage genuinely. When people reach out to you, if they make comments on your posts or engage with, your podcast, your email, your anything, Interact with that and be genuine about it. It's at the heart of authenticity. Do your best. And none of us does this perfect. I certainly don't do this perfect, but I try my best. When you get comments, when you get messages, when you get feedback, try to reply. You'll miss some of them. It happens. But be genuine when you give that reply. Be timely, be genuine, do the best you can. Show your audience that you value their input. Show your audience that you value and appreciate their support. Avoid generic responses. If people ask you a direct question, give them a direct, honest answer. Meaningfully engage. Aim for meaningful engagement. Number 5 on my list is this. If you're going to be really building authenticity into your brand, stay consistent. Several of the testimonies I heard tonight from some of our members was how consistency over the course of this past month, we had a challenge to create content for 21 days straight over the course of this month, and our members have been working on that. And people in our group have said, consistency over the course of the month, it was genuinely beneficial. Consistency is crucial for authenticity. Ensure that your messaging and your tone and your actions align across all your platforms and be consistent in putting that content out there. But make sure you show up as you genuinely are wherever you're showing up. Don't show up one way in one place and another way in another place. People start wondering, who on earth are you? Stay consistent. But then also embrace imperfection. We were talking about being transparent. This is a little different than being transparent, but it's related. Embrace imperfection. Authenticity is about being real, not perfect. Don't be afraid to show the human side of your brand. So you're allowed to share your struggles. You're allowed to share your vulnerabilities. You're allowed to share behind-the-scenes moments. All it's going to do is make your brand more relatable and maybe even make it more endearing. When I think about some of the YouTube channels that I follow in particular, many of them do an excellent job about just being really transparent and really just embracing their imperfections, not trying to be perfect, just being real. I find it relatable. I like it. One other thing that I'll add in here, listen to your audience. Authentic brands prioritize listening over broadcasting. So pay attention to what your audience needs, pay attention to their preferences, pay attention to their feedback. They will notice if you incorporate their feedback. Now, here's the thing. There are long-term benefits to authenticity. Authenticity is not like a quick fix or a short-term strategy. This is a long game. This is a marathon. Being authentic over the course of a long period of time enables you to build your brand and develop trust at the same time. Now, I promised you a story, and it's a story about a beginner. Many of you know that I have the opportunity to teach digital media courses. I also teach theology courses at Cairn University. But one of my main roles at Cairn University is to be like the voice of the digital media program. And so I teach students things about podcasting and blogging and writing and all that. And this semester, I'm teaching a course called Writing for Social Media and the Web. And there's not a ton of students in the class. There's only 12 students in the class. So it's my smallest class of all the classes that I'm teaching. But it's called Writing for Social Media and the Web. And during the course of this semester, one of the things that I'm having the students do is write a series of 5 blog posts. And their first blog posts were just due to me. So I just got them. And earlier today, I graded them. So I read through their blog posts. The students did excellent. I loved what they had to read. But one of the students in particular, I thought she was genuinely authentic in what she wrote. And I gave her a perfect score on the blog post. She got 100 on it because it was that good. But as I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is very transparent. And the concept that she used was the concept of dating and singleness when you're a Christian, dating and singleness when you're a person who takes your faith seriously. And she was just talking about some of the things that she's observed and experienced with that and was very transparent with it. And I thought, wow. And it took a lot of humility for her to write that article. And this is something that she intends to publish publicly. And I thought, wow, I'm seeing a lot of transparency, a lot of authenticity, a lot of humility in this. And as I read it, I noticed that it was very engaging and it made you as the reader want to read more because she was being real. She wasn't putting on some sort of a facade. It was all real. and it was like very real, and it made it for like just very interesting reading. And I thought, boy, I'm going to be talking about authenticity this week on the podcast. What a great example of what it looks like to be authentic. You take a risk and you do it, but it's beneficial. So if you're listening to me right now, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening on the podcast, wherever you're accessing this content, maybe even check out our blog from time to time and you read some of the articles that I post there. I just want to encourage you to be authentic. Be the person God's designed you to be. Be an honest, true, authentic voice. It's not going to hurt your brand. People are not going to be troubled by your mistakes. They're not going to be troubled by your errors. Just let those things be what they are. You don't even have to edit many of those things out. You know, certain things you might choose to edit them out, but many things you could leave those errors in. You could leave those mistakes in your video. You could leave those mistakes in your podcast. Be authentic. It's really going to build your brand by making you a trusted voice on your particular subject. So think about it. Take the risk. I know it's a risk. Take some humility to be authentic, but I really think that's what we're supposed to be. All that to say, thanks so much for listening this week as I authentically try to bring you the best that I can each week. If you are trying to grow an online business, an online platform, something that takes your passion and turns it into a paycheck, I want to be able to help you with that. Stop by platformlaunchers.com. See the different things that we have there. I've got coaching. We've got our membership. I've got mentorship if you want to work hand in hand directly over the course of a 3-month period of time. It's all there on the website. Just check it out. Get in touch with me. Let me know if any of those are a good fit for you. But in the meantime, thanks so much for listening. Super grateful that we're able to chat each week. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope your online business is developing fantastically and your platform is growing. And I look forward to catching up with you again right here next week. And in the meantime, take care.